Deeper and deeper I go. I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is true, yes. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, a learning experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, and I are pleased to present While We're Being Diddled. But before we begin, please be sure to like. Please like, please like, please like. Come on now. Share. And if you have not already done so, and I'm amazed if you haven't, but if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel.
Islam.
Islam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wow.
Shalom.
Wow.
Vadimekum. Bon abort.
We are so grateful to be coming back to you. We have, right?
Yes,
so you might hear the air in the background, y'all, but if you don't want us to do the old I'm meditating in front of you and sweat profusely, then you know, of course,
tolerate the background.
Absolutely. We got the mic over here between us, so we hope that you can hear us. We're gonna holler. We're gonna elevate the decibels of our voices. I don't know what we're gonna do. Trying to get ready to do so. And yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody said, loving your hair, Dr. G. The locks. Okay.
We need to just update and talk about the distractions a little bit. We can be an ad hoc and a little bit of humor about current events with the trust and hopes that the people are awakening, because they're demonstrating that they are awakening, and shedding the delusions and illusions that Rome has controlled for the last few hundred years or more.
Absolutely. And just with regard to the title that we selected for today, While We're Being Diddled, that's sort of a pun intended, because there's so much things about certain
deliberated distraction.
Not only deliberated distraction, but what one of the things that we've been distracted by over the last couple of months, and the growing number of things. But just for those who, like, why they say diddled, diddled means like being swindled or defrauded or hoaxes and so forth like that. So in a sense, those of us who know,
distracted by delusions and illusions.
Absolutely. So those of us who know, all that stuff, like remember the old nursery rhyme, hey diddle diddle, the cat's in the fiddle, cow jumped over the moon, dog on it, little dog laughed to see such a sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. Oh, y'all, I'm dating myself, but those were some of our nursery rhymes. Y'all, anybody remember that? Yeah, anybody remember that? Put a 1 in there if you remember that, hey diddle diddle. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, she didn't cut that lock. Yes, she did. Okay, but listen, because we are Grand Sheik. And when I say we are, I'm talking about the collective, not necessarily those. Yep. See, I see y'all.
People are coming into their own.
It's
a little uncomfortable. And it's also enlightening. How to say? There's enthusiasm, fear. All of the emotions are mixed, and that's because the third degree paradigm is being disassembled.
Right. There are so many things that like I've been getting a lot of calls this week, of course, like I do any week. But as we get closer, well, here's one of the things that kind of even made me even think about this in terms of, and I don't think, now I was told that this had passed, but I don't think it passed. But in the background, there's heated, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's heated debate and in what we call Congress to reinstate, for instance, the draft.
Yeah, and women.
and include women in the draft. Yeah. So anybody between, I was told between the ages of maybe 18 to 26. And so my immediate, when I got was informed of that, though I checked it out, and it doesn't appear that it has actually taken place, but it's imminent.
It's a threat.
It's a threat, right?
Yeah,
right.
But when it boils down to what is the real discomfort with them and with the people, with many who haven't really awakened to what's really going on, may be forgetting that they're not legitimate government, they're de facto. Right. So these things have to be, and redundantly, we say these things just like we tell people whenever you get into any political venue or any thought about what the trustees for the United States Corporation Company are doing relative to passing any bills or laws, keep in mind the Clearfield Doctrine. And I remind you of that because remember, we're trained in the Bretton Woods mentality of economics. Since
tell them what Bretton Woods is.
That's basically with the priesthood that you generally know as the politicians coming together secretly and agreeing to cause the nations of the earth as much as they could not to be able to buy or sell without coming through the Circle Church and Chancery's voucher system via the Federal Reserve voucher system that the people know as fiat, which is private, keep this in mind, private commercial paper. And that would become God that defeats all other gods on earth, etc. And this is where the people, even when we're talking about these things, where the masses have for generations believed that they were getting paid if they would do a job, if they were on a job, if they were saving, if they were investing in stock, if they were investing in bonds, if they were investing in retirement funds and
401k.
Yeah, 401ks. We've been telling people for years.
All of those things. Yeah.
But even though the general masses are still somewhat asleep, you have what you call an energy arc. Whereas when so many people begin to wake up, the delusion starts to break up. And this is what's happening right now. And even though there's some chaos and confusion, the real spiritual side, or the I am nature of humanity, is becoming to the surface. And so this is a threat by the Circle Church and Chancery to initiate another large war. They never stop warring, keep this in mind. But another large war where they could justify eliminating a larger mass of people so that the people would not be able to rebel against them or take them out of power. And so the threat of initiating an automatic draft, as they would call it, from 18 to 26, two things when you deal with researching their own records. They want to get the strong youth under control. they've done enough with their psychic operations and with their genetic warfare to neutralize much or many of the male of the species. Because keep in mind, in order to defeat nations, or which means, because nation is related to the feminine principle, the natural order of things, or what you call the natural matriarchy. How do you kill the queen? You remove the warriors who would protect her while she's doing her job. This is why they've been pushing the military operations, calling the gender bending operations, which you see is solidly established in society now, right? It's not condemning the people, it's telling the truth about the genetic warfare. But that genetic warfare is for the purpose of completing the unum sanctum genocide, which was already planned decades before. Because keep in mind, the priesthood always operates years ahead, meaning that we may look at things as current events, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the things that we look at as current events were engineered decades ago. Those who are cognizant of how they operate usually prepare themselves somewhat or have some order of resistance in their life order to try to counter the operations of the Circle Church and Chancery. But many, because the people's lives are guided by the institutions created by the priesthood, resist even obvious, what you call signals or red flags, that you might say, that expose the agenda, and they will essentially be the general food. However, we're at a point now where so many people are becoming conscious that they're resisting on multiple levels, etc., which is good. Now, if the people are still sleeping up and they can expand the ongoing wars, there's multiple wars going on, they can get directly to the matriarchy by killing off women, which is what the ultimate mission is anyway. So when you conquer the woman, you conquer the nation. So that we're talking the real politics of what they really intend. Now, they want to distract us with a lot of these diddlings that you refer to. Interject, Dr. J.
Yeah, so I'm going to go, me, y'all, I like to go into the other stuff. You get into history and stuff like that. But I'm just restudying a couple of things. So this week, y'all, I re-looked at from 2019, The Dark Crystal. Please, why it is the movie, the Dark Crystal is still.
Jim
I was
Henson.
surprised. Jim Henson from the Muppet fame. The movie came out in the second one, it was a 10 series, whatever, and then they stopped it. I looked up like what happened after that, and it was a whole bunch. It was expensive, so they did. But enough was put out in that one for anyone who had eyes to see and ears to hear what that movie and was using Muppets, but what it was about. So I re-looked at that this week, and then I also delved back into Eisenhower, former President Prater Eisenhower,
Dwight D.
Eisenhower in 1954. Had a meeting. It is had been put out there, and it's widely known that in 1954 he met with allegedly aliens, and in exchange for technologies and certain things, they had a choice. Now I heard two different things. So when I don't know exactly when they met, when Valiant Thor was who came and spent a couple of years, they say, at the White House, and really wanted to bring peace and things for peace and healing and so forth. But they also had technology, but the so-called powers that were opted for technology over things that would create peace and so forth.
No.
And let me finish with that. So with Eisenhower also, along with whatever agreements were made, it was agreed to make so-called human available, and I don't know how readily, but it seemed in exchange for this technology, what the same thing that they've done by offering us up as surety for bonds is what they did is offered us up as surety for technology to these, ETs or negative, entities coming from it, whether they were interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or what. And at times, I've heard it said that because it wasn't us, they were required to create large-scale wars. One thing to pick up, a couple people riding down the road, and zap them up. But when you create the large-scale wars, you just have in mass
that gets fodder for experiment,
which we call loosh also, and the energy of death and destruction and so forth. So they have, for some reason, and some makes sense to us, but for some reason, that's how they live. You know what I mean? They can live off of they feed off of that energy, right? On that suffer. In the dark crystal, of course, the energy of the gelflings.
They're telling you the actual history.
Yes. So so here we are again. I'm not sure when the draft ended, but we know that now we know 2019, 2020, 2021, what happened. So that was another, it was a war, but it was a different kind of war. The battlefield was just our bodies and our, the battle for, do you want to keep your Job, and do you want to, Job job and all this stuff. So if you do, you take this, you subject, because really this is really for your good. It's not, we care about you. They don't care about us, as Michael said. They don't really care about us. And so here we go again with the, as I said, the Senate hasn't passed the bill yet, but now they're trying to reinstate the draft. And this time to include females, because that's why all of this gender equality, and not that we're not equal, but we were fine in the ecosystem of women, taking care of what women take care of, while we make off the balance. We create the champions to go out and fight the battles.
All right, this is why they don't teach the real history of even the Pythagorean temples. All right, that's part of Moorish history, right? Pythagorean temple, what is retranslated in the retranslated Bibles as virgin birth.
Okay.
All right, that's where also called the applied science of the number 9, where women consciously create champions.
Absolutely.
So the champions are no different than when good way to comprehend it is the nature of how a beehive works, where the queen produces both workers, warriors, etc., and also males. Because remember, in the nature of things, everything is born first female.
Right.
Until the testes manifest, that's when the morphology takes place. All right, and they will call it the royal honey. And this is symbolically where you have Isis and her son Horus, where he's given special treatment, etc., because he's actually also becomes her defender. All right, so for the queen to be protected, this is where why also with the psychic attacks dealing with military operations, that they feminize the male in order to remove the defense of the queen. This is a military principle. People need to understand it's not a philosophical principle. Though it's, can be looked at philosophically, this is actually how it functions. And if you pay attention to the social order today in the operations, you'll see where a large number of the males are feminized. Culturally, the way they dress, the way they act, the way they're raised, etc. And people think that that's coming from internal in the culture, not knowing that it's actually a military operation.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And the fact that they not, most people don't look at it that way. They don't guard themselves because they just think it's a part of quote unquote accepted culture phase that we're going through, and they look at it innocently when actually it's a war operation.
But when you look at, I saw something else this week, and I'm not sure what that show was, but in it, they were trying to take these. There's something on I don't know if it's on Netflix or where it is, but these I think it's a Star Wars. It's a Star Wars movie. It's a sister. Y'all probably seen it. And the sister fights the Jedi master, who's a female, kills her. And then it turns out there's twin sisters, so it's not the one that they raised. But when you go back into the history that they put into this particular movie, the latest Star Wars movie, she is. They came from a community of all women. They were the first children, they say, born into the community, and without the aid of a male for that. So they were,
That's the Pythagorean test.
right. So okay, so they had, and the mothers were one melanated and the one that was non-melanated carried the
surrogate.
Yeah, she carried, but it was the melanated head of the community that actually, she's like, I created them, right? And so there were no men in that thing. So
this is why she's also referred to, when you go into ancient culture all over the planet, why she's also referred to as the goddess of good and evil.
And the sisters, the interesting thing is, one of them was good and one of them was evil.
Yeah, and this is where when you really study the culture, this is why when people actually get into anthropology and migrations and real human history, why a lot of people, because of the way they have been told about the history, try to take the good of what they appear to be good and then ignore the bad or the evil as if it had nothing to do with them. If you get the point, like when people look into history, everybody wants to pat each other on the back and talk about how great we are, and then when they see the negative, they want to act like that's somebody else.
Right.
That ain't us.
Right.
We're the goody guys, and they're the baddie guys. When all of it's in us.
Right. That's right. Thank you. It's the Acolyte. That's it. Yeah, that's it. The
know,
series is called The Acolyte, the Star Wars. But yeah, so but it all has significance, and we just not getting into movie show, but we, a lot of things that we see, now you have to look at it for the message, the message in the movie that is for edutainment, not entertainment. You need to, because a lot of things that they've been sending it to us down through the years that I believe have been entrainment. They have been in training, brain entrainment.
That's part of military
operations. They've been mesmerizing and convincing us of certain things that.
Because remember, we as you're bringing that forth, just a reminder of the listeners, we have to remember, even when people are operating dark magic, they also recognize that there's universal laws that have to be observed. So even if someone's dealing dark, they understand nature's law. This is another reason why, or what masses in general, without us going into the philosophical breakdown of what they refer to as karmic law or hermetic law, cause and effect, etc. Whereas, also what the people may be familiar with, what thou sowest, so shall thou reap. That's related to a cause and effect. That's related to nature's law, or that which is in the universe, for balancing the universe, so it's fixed. No one gets around it. So even if someone dealing dark magic, this is why a lot of times they'll tell you certain truths, but they'll tell it in a story or in a fable or in a code, according to the time, in the movies, in books, etc., in order to reduce the karmic response, also to control the mind, because remember, they cannot interfere, because one of the other rules in universal rules is that of going against what is known as free will. This is why they go through the effort to deceive, even if they have power to force. They go through the effort to deceive in order for one to willingly participate in something that is also counter or damaging, in order for they themselves not to cross that line, or the karmic line of force. So therefore, because they are vampiric in their nature, for the louche, they must encourage you or deceive you in order to give it. And therefore, this is why they ask, or this is why they will show things as like the dark crystal,
right,
that actually gives you reality of what would be called today with the words called A. That starts with A.
Is what I? No.
Chromes on a car.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, because that energy, because that,
even the fact that they disallow the communication for us to even say it.
Right.
All right, that's part of military operations. Now, the deal over
and
there,
what we're gonna call it is essence. It's they
they'll
call
it
in
essence.
the dark crystal they call it essence, and in reality, you know, when like he said, starts with A, because when fear is first generated in the hearts of people, adrenaline begins to rise up, and then you get, you know, what was like, if you saw the dark crystal, they popped out that girl, they drew her, sucked her essence, and they got like a drop, but the power in that one drop.
Even that knowledge of what you're saying right now,
Yeah.
even when you go into ancient history here, Egypt on this side, Egypt on this side, because you already know when they're talking ancient history, really, and they're talking about ancient Egypt or ancient Egypt, the masses, because of contemporary training, keep thinking the other side of the water. So unless they already know the real history, that this landmass is Major Egypt, Upper Egypt. You know, so they look at things coming from that side to this side rather than
from this side to
that side. In other words, they've turned the world upside down. This is part of the code where you see the hybrid Europeans right in history where they separated Egypt from Africa. That phrase, what that means, and like when you see the ancient a symbol of the ancient ones with the pyramid, and then you'll see like they'll use it on the private commercial paper voucher system, and they'll have the Eye of Horus separated from the pyramid, which means they've separated our capacity or our pineal. So therefore we see, but we can't see. And so the foundation, so they control the foundation. This is why when you see their operations, whether they're dealing with economics, religion, education, all of them are structured on what they call a pyramid scheme. That's what they mean. Not that the pyramid is negative.
Okay.
If you get the point. Their operations, or what you call using dark side magic. So when people see even the eyes separated on the pyramid, that means they've claimed the airship, but they must ask, or they must influence, or they must deceive. This is why it's so important, and why they spend so much energy controlling the narrative. And even when they use the corporate operations, the Circle Church and Chanceries, United States Corporation Company, you notice that they are also careful to structure everything on the 6. This is why when you do the research of the corporate controllers of the communication system, it's 6. 6 major corporations, even though they're tied, they don't go to 7 and they don't go to 5. They lock on 6, but that's purposeful. You know, the 666 principle. All right. So everything they do is with a knowledge of the workings of nature to protect themselves. Therefore, they'll give you a signal so that they can say, or that it can be, because remember, the saying is not necessarily verbal, but it's also telepathic in the energy of the energy packages in the universe. I asked them, I told you, I asked you, and you followed. See, so they got to ask you, or they got to influence you, then you follow them, then that reduces the karmic response in nature to them.
And thinking about the 6, where they operate on the 6, we operate on the 9.
And the 7.
And the 7. But the 9, which is on the reverse, you know, you can flip a 6 and make it a 9. But when we talk about divine, you know.
Now that's the applied science of the number 9.
Applied science of number 9, but they operate in that.
This is, Dr. J, this is where people need to comprehend the ancient symbolism of the Ankh or system, and need to understand that it operates on the planet, not just in the concept that the people have today at Hukupta. And one of the things that locks the people out, even here in the North, right, is because the mental separation that we ourselves maintain because we believed them. No different than what do all archaeologists know? And all people who understand mineralogy is that the soil of Mexico or Olmec and the soil of North Kemet, that you call Kemet today, are exactly the same because they were connected. What was once was a river became an ocean. And that's an activity that people think is a people when they say Hebrew.
And that's an
really,
action.
It's an activity.
Right.
And this is why some of the people that get into some of the history start thinking that that's an identity or that that's a pedigree when that's an action. And this is why you have to remind people when you have to go to one of the best ways, another way to really lay it out is going to like before the Septuaginta, or what they would call what becomes the first Bibles. So the first Bibles, if you really want to really know less tampered with, you would have to go to Eritrea, or what they would call the Ethiopian Bible, right? Which they just allow here in North America. And so that would have a lot of the books because the original culture, because remember, that same culture there is actually in Mexico. And this is what confuses a lot of the people in over here up to the north when they do research and they start seeing a lot of the culture in whether you're dealing in the Midwest here, like a Grand Canyon area, right? And also California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Louisiana, and Mexico. And you'll see the architecture, symbolisms, hieroglyphs. And, they do much they can to hide the hieroglyphs. Because remember, the operations of Rome is to cut the head off of Africa, or what they say, separate Egypt from Africa. Someone who doesn't understand the metaphor knows that they can't lift up the land and move it somewhere else.
But they do it here.
So, this is why they claim Greece. So Greece is the tool for claiming ancient Ekupta culture and claiming it as their own, so that when we see it, we think it's theirs.
Because the original Grecian people were melanated people.
Because it's all the same people. It's back, it's back. But when you see the confusion, it's mainly with the descendants here.
Right.
Who mentally keep separating themselves from the rest of the world. That's the cutting off of what they say Egypt, because they don't know they're standing on Egypt. It's why you see a lot of people who don't know the anthropology get offended. They themselves get offended if you mention Africa related to them here. Because they're looking at post-Pangea, post-continental drift. These are different terms. Post-Cocoa split. All of them mean the same thing. Post-Atlantis. All of that, where you're dealing with the cocoa plates shift, Pangea, continental drift, the Atlantis sinking, all relate, or the Great Super Beer, what they call separating the land from Ham and Kush, all of them mean the same thing. Same, different words referring to the Great Cocoa Split, where the Red River and the what they call the Atlantis River separated and created the Atlantis Ocean.
Atlantic Ocean.
Atlantic Oceans, but we call it Atlantis. Older maps will say Atlantis.
Okay.
All right. So Atlantis is simply there, but the tail parts of Atlantis is actually Mexico and Texas area.
So it goes.
All of it didn't sink. We talk about separation of land.
Okay.
If you get the whole point.
So some of it is below.
Some is below, but most of these people right here so you have indigenous people, but the real people are the aboriginals. So like when you see the ancient pyramids here, you'll see the word ab-antiquo. Ab-antiquo means the people, the ancient. So that means ancient peoples. So the pyramid, the Great Seal Pyramid is the symbol of the ancient Moabite, Canaanite, Hittite because they're different tribes that comprise as one. And this is comprised of what you call Al, or Al also means descendant of Morocco or the Moroccans. This is where you get Al Moroccan. This is where you get Al Murush, or you get the ancient Moors. They say Mirs, W-U. And then because culturally they didn't, the O was held as sacred because the O means Alpha and Omega, full circle, and that represents spiritual development. So they would, the O and the U would be interchangeable.
Mhm.
So instead of Mir, they would say more, but they mean the same thing. So when you look at Mir, so when you look at ancient old Mexim, and you'll see the culture with a Hagar, Hammurabi Bay, which is used to today, Code of Hammurabi, and you'll see who was the last high priest of the ancient Moabite, because now you're talking Moorish modern, right? Modern. It's modern. It's ancient in most people's eyes, but it's modern to us.
Right.
What supersede? Where did the Moorish nation come from? The ancient Moabite nation, which was the matriarchy. What's the difference? Same people. We're talking about governance. The matriarchy, Moabite. Patriarchy, Moorish. So that's mother and son. This is why you see though you know that Aunt Hagar ruled in ancient Amexem, her grave is in Mecca. So people who know the history know that relationship,
Mhm.
right? And then this is why a lot of people that start doing the research find out that they're aboriginal to the land, start tracing back and start saying, oh, we're the real Hebrews. You see, they're talking about an action.
Right.
But they need to, when you're looking at the history, as soon as you forget the continental shift, you remove the head, your mind, on your own for Rome. That's part of the key to Roman rule. And what have they done? The whole foundation of their operations with us from day one has been what? Human trafficking. What has been the deception? This is a country operation. This is a nation operation, when in fact, they're actually foreign, alien hybrids who conquered the nation and have been doing what? Sucking the essence, with the intent of eventually, when it is all essence is extracted, to drop the carcass. This is what's symbolized in the dark crystal. And the crystal is what? Pyramidal. That's why the crystal is pyramidal. They're giving you, see, if you know what you're looking at, right? So now they have given you keys to the real human experience. But if you look at it, oh, it's just a cartoon, it's just a movie. Nevertheless, in the ethers, they have told you.
Yeah, they're letting you know what they've been doing and what they intend to do.
They reduce the cause and effect response to themselves, because in nature law, what is one of the laws, hermetic laws? Compensation, isn't it? Also reciprocity, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So interject. That was just an interjection.
No,
because what you know, people, just the same way that people, many people who don't understand tool usage, as an example, you could easily get them arguing whether the Pharaoh had an iPhone or an Android, and build an argument on it for people who don't understand shifting and projection, right? So even though the technology, even at that time, was more telepathic than it was actually, even though we did writings, if you get the point. So one who doesn't understand it you could easily groom them if you're controlling, quote unquote, the education, and get people arguing about whether George Washington had a cell phone and whether Harriet Tubman, had a Cadillac or a horse. And they would build a whole scenario on that. And if you watch people today, people who don't know the real history, you'll see them making arguments and interject things no different than they'll take the black and white code system created with the Whiggamore Party and interject it into ancient history while they're discussing Aboriginal and indigenous history, culture. They'll take the black codes, Christian black codes, and interject it into a time it didn't even exist. And so from a spirit plane, if you lie, you can't criticize a lie. But they don't know that that's a controlled narrative, if you get the point. Doesn't mean that they're not on the path. And even that essentially must be overcome, because you already know this is a school for learning.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the word magic, powers, and called definitions of words. If y'all have the USB drive, you have the USB drive. We post that up there. There's PDF in there on that. Chapter 4, we're talking about some words I want to share, because this is a part like the deception. And like, for instance, Christians largely, probably only, are the ones that talk about the rapture. So I love the way he breaks down the meanings of words. So the word rapture is connected to the Latin word raptus, which means a carrying off, abduction, snatching away, rape.
Yes.
But Christians think that they wait for the rapture. So
ascension.
Therefore, the deeper meaning of the word is snatching or abduction. So Christians who believe that they will be raptured to heaven have been deceived by the dark forces. And every time people die, their souls are raptured, abducted to heaven. This heaven is not heaven where enlightened beings live. Instead, it is another control system of the artificial matrix used by dark forces to trick naive and cowardly souls to go back into their matrix slavery program, which is a program designed to prevent souls from leaving the artificial matrix. Because we don't die. We may drop the vessel that we've been traveling around in. So where do you go then? So a lot of folks, reincarnation a lot of times is cyclical.
What they call reincarnation,
what they're calling it, simply recycles.
Which is part of nature. This is what they must understand.
Right.
And not based on what you believe or what you don't believe. It has nothing to do with beliefs whatsoever. And as a qualification, dealing with the corruption of conception, of concept, we have to always remember the majority of the people that are assumed to be Christians today, that we loosely accept as claiming to be Christians because they say they are really Constantinians. Because we've got to remember, the operations of the priesthood is really the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed presented as Christianity, which is represented to the misinformation or what people assume to be misconception, but that's actually the controlled narrative. It's deliberate, where people would often look at these things and say, oh, they misinterpreted. No, they did not. Yeah.
Well, here's another word. So we're giving you, like while we're diddling, we're using words and having, So some researchers of alien gods suggest that people were also used as food source. We know this. This makes me wonder if the Garden of Eden is the Garden of Eaton, Eatin or ing. Right. Besides, what else would they use a garden for? To grow food, to eat, right? If this were the case, then Earth would be the Garden of Eatin, not the
interjection. For those of you who really study ancient world history, how do you say, you want to go to primal sources to get references, because remember, most of the concepts, even metaphorically, that are presented to the people as what the Bible means or not means, Quran and other books, philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, etc. When you go to the culture of the people, you'll see the Garden of Eden. It deals with Isis and dark side of the moon, which is actually woman, and the clitoris, and the vagina is the actual Garden of Eden. And location-wise, we're talking physical location, where people are looking in West Asia today, and they're arguing that part of Canaan. The real part of the Garden of Eden is actually in the area that you call Eritrea today. That's known among priesthood. It's not taught because the paradigm or the controlled narrative is Egypt and that area, Galilee, and that area, stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is that's not the truth.
Right.
But also, I want to reinforce the Garden of Eden is actually the growth of the fetus in the womb and the birth canal, which is symbolized by the angst. The Garden of Eden is actually the womb of the cosmic mother.
Well, y'all need to read this, and like I said, you need to read
Yes, it would be very helpful.
And I think I'm sure there's PDF on the drive, so you can read this. But here's the thing: the Rapture program is another quote unquote savior program, because that's what a lot of the churches and religions are solid system where, if you saw the old car wash movie, the slick preacher had the women all around him and he was singing, "You got to believe in something, so why not believe in me?" Yeah. And so we have this inferior complex to our own divinity that we need to have someone outside of ourselves in order to save us. And you've heard it over and over, especially of late. Nobody's coming to save you. And you've already got the ability to save yourself, but it comes with knowledge of self.
And it comes with your connection with nature. Because keep in mind, one of the tricks of the priesthood, just like you say Elohim, right? Mm-hmm. Elohim. That means plural.
Yeah, Elohim.
So Eloah is singular. Elohim is plural.
Right.
So the real deal, when you go into the ancient text, there is no God singular. Never was.
Right. I like what Billy Carson says about that. I like the fact that
the truth.
But he says, as far as the supreme creator, that the supreme creator is an energetic force, is energy. Now you got beings of various hierarchies that have usurped authority over, like even in the Dark Crystal, I keep referring back to that because I just looked at it again. Even in the Dark Crystal, so there were 7 clans.
You'll see them.
7 clans of the Gelfins, but even they were mentally conditioned to believe that some were lesser than the other, when in reality they were just different clans and they were equal in their value, but tribes, if you will, they call them clans, but they were equal, but they just didn't know they were equal, so they became subservient to the one where they had the Omudra, the queen, who would be like say the Queen Elizabeth type character, who was getting their tithes and sending them up to the Skeksis, who were a group of, I would call them, the ones we call the elite, the Vatican, those folks. So, and it wasn't that many of them, but they kept it, like you said, they need consent. Right?
Power is the power to deceive and control.
Right. So they keep us, the dark forces keep us living in a state of victim mentality, so that they can weaken our spiritual powers and allowing them to enslave our bodies, our minds, our souls. And the good news is what it said, they can only do it by consent, just like the vampire. You got to invite the vampire in, right?
Don't they do this? Look, watch the practice. They steal the people's power through emotion. And they say, "Who wants us to save it? Come on, come forth, come on down." Like the Price is Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Come on down. Will, free will, right?
Right.
They say, "Give an offering."
Right.
Right. So that makes them God. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Even like if you look at the culture, right? When you look at different books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you already know some of the favorite books of Yeshua was the Vedas, as you already know.
And what is that? You're talking about the Vedic text?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Vedas.
All right.
The 4 Vedas. Now, and he always would tell the people when they would try to project the godship on him, he says, "All of you are gods."
Mm-hmm.
But look how many people use him as an image to talk about one, when he always said, "You are."
Mm-hmm.
So these people are in a developmental stage who are being seized upon by dark priests who happen to be more advanced because they have the knowledge, not because the knowledge is not available to the masses. It's disallowed to be available to them, which is why the Constantinians always maintain the practice of what they refer to as book burning, or hiding, or Smithsonian, burying
the knowledge, keeping that knowledge.
That's expurgatorius and prohibitorum. These are established rules that are hundreds of years old, used to this very day. You know, even, you know, as we have to be careful what we say, because they will do what? Bury it. How do they do it? They'll just use AI and then claim AI did it, we didn't. That's current, but it's still expurgatorius and prohibitorum. You know, and this is why it's important for people to really know the history, so they can see that the operations haven't changed. They just changed the name for the cycle, for people not to tie it together, or to recognize that the dark priesthood or the demon breed is actually the people they've been calling by deception their politicians and priesthood.
Right.
And that's what they don't want the people to figure out. The people are figuring it out now, which is what's making them uncomfortable, which is also causing what they refer to now as the reset. That's what really the consciousness is causing the reset.
In the past, resets have not been financial as much as it has been a purging. Because, you know, they put out movies called like The Purge and the whatever, the different ones, but that has been a purging of certain people to cull, if you will, culling the herd. Just like they have certain times when they say, oh, you can shoot the deer because it's too much deer. You know, it's deer hunting season. And that's the way they operate with us in the same way.
Yeah, but the deal of it is from a political perspective, the political training is for the masses of the people not recognize that they are being used as food and that they're expendable, which is why what you call the endless wars. But they use moral arguments even when, upon examination, it is totally not justified and misrepresented. And yet now, so this is back to what? The so-called draft, which means against your will, but then coerce you in order to sign up. So they're killing the job.
So the people that they put in, we allegedly put in as our representatives, and we don't, but then so they're on our behalf making decisions, not for their children, but for our children, for our sons and our daughters. But, you know, and they have a way of making sure that theirs, you know, are not even, you know, they don't have to worry about it.
Remember this for the automatic trolls who keep telling people that their vote counts, right? Congressional college, right? All right. So remember that what that's for.
Yeah, because after everybody puts their vote in, then there's a little small group that makes a decision.
Always, and the people you vote for, they put up in the first place. And who are they? All of them are trustees for the United States Corporation Company, run through Circle Church and Chancery, operated in these days from Davos, Switzerland. Not a secret. This is why when they ran all those wars, they never bombed Switzerland.
Yeah, that's supposed to be like
almost that's home base.
Yeah, home base, but they've been set up as sort of like the what do you call it? That neutral zone. So they're
never been neutral. The claim is neutral.
I mean, that's the way they appear to be. You know,
that's the why delusion.
People can hide their funds there, and they can, you know, they can. Yeah, so now, you know, you got the Schwab guy and all of these other.
Now start looking at you look at the World Economic Forum. All of us, you see, once you start paying attention to a corporate descendancy, you start finding these same people has nothing to do with the masses. Who caused these people to have to get things in their arm? The same family that set up the education system. Frederick T. Gates, John D. Rockefeller. Who owns the patents to the bio warfare against the people? Gates family. But people don't pay attention to the details, do they? Because they're distracted by the narrative. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a good chapter also in this book. I'm not going to read it. Called Chapter 5 is how the legal and commerce systems drain your energy. And and this is what a lot of you all have, and us have gone through, trying to get a resolution, or trying to get what we feel is our just reward, remedy to release ourselves from the clutches. And it's a system designed to drain our energy. And so there's a whole bunch of what the word, even the word contract,
look what's happening right now, Dr. J, and what we've been telling people for actually a few years, and we've mentioned it a few times. What's happening right now that most people can relate to. Many of you who have recent mortgages, or that many of you who have bought a car in this last year, many of you will be able to verify what I'm about to say. You've discovered, and some of you haven't discovered it yet, that the communication system for the database that operates on all your major car companies, Stellantis, GM, and Ford, right, got an alleged hack, and all of your information is out there in the public right now. And because of the education system, the people who have been dealing with the administrative levels of the contracts for cars can't get work done because they can't count anymore. They've been counting on their phones and on the case system that deals with the backup for all the autos. So what's happening now? They've already had bad sales, right? So now they can't buy or sell cars because administratively they got to go back to what? Basic elementary contract building, and these so-called educated people with degrees can't even structure a contract or even read contract because they don't teach contract law. That's going on right now as we're speaking. And so a lot of you out there may think that some of these problems that you're having with the accounts, not your account, the account that they tag your name to, that's going on right now. So if you thought that was unique to you, some of you who are listening right now, notice that we told you this was going to happen before, and it's going on right now. So that means, how long will it take for some of these so-called auto dealers? Because remember, the automobile industry is the third largest industry in the Western Hemisphere. So what will that have? That will have a domino effect shortly. Not only that, what are the problems going to come after that, when all of the information that deals with whatever has been released in the medical records, all your credit information, social security number, all transactions, and your bank accounts, all contracts, agreements that you've made is now in the dark web. And some of it's on the open web right now. So you already know what's going to take place with that, right? But I'm saying this to you, Dr. J. They're blaming it on, they're going to blame it because it ain't in the mainstream necessarily yet. But the deal with it is they're doing it. They're crashing the system because no one's buying their bonds. Remember, we told you that people are going to stop buying their bonds. So they're creating problems in order to justify that they've been robbing you. And so they've dumped your information out there to act like it was a glitch,
right? To
justify what's manifesting, because it's just hitting a lot of people. So on the mainstream, most people ain't going to be talking about this, but it should be coming up within the next week or so. But some of you are listening who are experiencing it right now. I just told you what's happening.
So the other thing, one of the other things is to switch gears a little bit, because we talk about
keep you diddled
while we're being diddled,
so you don't pay attention to.
So let's talk about. Can you talk about the implications of Russia and North Korea signing an alliance?
Now, keep in mind the continued wars, right? Because you got to remember the Unum Sanctum didn't just begin. So when Britain, U.S., France, etc., divided Korea and created what you call North Korea and South Korea, etc., the reason they're designated North Korea as enemy because these are many of the Aboriginals or the indigenous people of North Korea that would not submit to unum sanctum operations. So their alliance with Russia now, because keep in mind, the Khazarian operations that have taken place right now in Canaan land are tied to the same Khazarians that you call Nazis that are actually in Ukraine. And the mission that they created NATO for was actually to keep Russia destabilized so that they could steal their oil and control their minerals. Because remember, Russia, from a nation state perspective, is one of the largest land areas as a nation in the world. That's number one. Number two, all of the base minerals and resources that one would need as from a nation state perspective, Russia has them all, which means Russia can operate independently without necessarily importing anything. One of the operations of the what they call the G7, i.e., or what they refer to themselves as the Occidental West, they removed the word Occidental, the West, etc., was to destabilize Russia, which was once a Soviet republic. They did that in early 90s, keep that in mind. So Russia came out of the USSR. Their mission is to steal their resources and subdue them like they did Africa, like they did Libya, like they did Persia, which became Iraq and Iran. Iran is the part of the indigenous people that resisted. Iraq succumbed.
So this is like this economic hitman stuff we were talking about. They do it all globally.
This is the ongoing wars. They're all the same wars.
So let's go back a little bit. Just give them let's give them a recap of some of the villainized leaders in some of these countries that they destabilized, that they made the world think were villain, like I said, but they really controlled the narrative. Would you say, well, of course, we know they did it in Haiti.
That's why that's maintained. And what they've been robbing Haiti of billions every year, which keeps Haiti poor to France, right? And even the so-called Vietnam War. Well, that was the Franciscan Brotherhood, right? Mm-hmm. Which is them.
Yeah.
Right. And
they started that with the
U.S. go into them? Because France was losing the war with the Aboriginal and indigenous people. So with their pact, with their unum sanctum pact, United States and Britain came in, and that's what you call the Vietnam War and Cambodia.
And it also was a furtherance of the drug cartel, the drug trade.
But remember, that's part of the what you call the spoils. They call it booty and prize. Mm-hmm. But let's just keep it simple for the masses. All of these same wars is by the same people.
Right.
They cover up by saying these are bankers' wars. The bankers is really the bench of the Pope. And this is back to people understanding that the United States is not a country. It's a Jesuit war machine presented as a country. Mm-hmm. So the deception, this is why when you see a lot of people talking about this, Dr. G, you'll see what creates a lot of the confusion, because they'll keep saying America.
Right.
Did this. America didn't do. America is from Chile to up the Greenland area. All Canaan land, that's America. The American people come from what? Belize, Argentina, Bolivia, right? Mm-hmm. Brazil. You see, even with the argument, like the war with the UK was fighting for the Falkland Islands, a decade or so ago. People need to understand all of these are the same war. And so what you see right now taking place is enough people are waking up that they're recognizing that the same villain is going under different names and under different organizations to execute the unum sanctum wars, which is the same war against humanity. But the humanity is actually reference to the Aboriginal peoples. Then secondary to that is the indigenous people, because remember, the Aboriginal is the first. So when you see Antiqua, you're talking about first peoples. When you're talking indigenous, you're talking about offspring or people who come with the first people that are either in ancient alliance and acceptance or by mixing. So that would be indigenous. But the Aboriginal is the first peoples. That people who are uncomfortable, to tell the truth, will call Ikupta or Ptah. So Ptah would be what you say Egypt on the planet. See, so it's important for them to separate the concept geographical of Egypt as if it's a country now, when actually Egypt was the whole landmass of both that part of Mexico and this part. And this is why they hide. The Smithsonian was literally created to hide the real history here. You know, this is why a lot of people, when they're following the European teaching, they will lean towards mentally separating themselves from Egypt, because that's the training. But that's your estate, and you're standing on it. So these people's head is cut off. And this is, again, symbolically, when you see them in the secret societies or masonry, they'll have the head of the Sphinx, and they'll have the two-edged sword that's talked about in the Bible, that with the crescent at the end over the head of the Sphinx, which means the subjugation of the Moabites. So once they conquer the woman or take your head off, the nation is done. So it's important for them to project the idea of son superiority rather than balance, rather than yin and yang, so that they could get male and female to fight each other, right? That's war. And get the woman to, in the name of them, she thinking that they're helping her from the suppression coming from them, she blames her son. They alienate each other, which increases the genocide. Then they get her to agree for her self-ego to, rather than call it child sacrifice, they'll say it's abortion. So they've murdered a lot of their own children. I think it's somewhere around 2 billion since 1970. So they've given what? They've given the carcasses has been for the burger industry, the livers, the pineal gland, the medulla, etc., has been used in cloning. The organs have created a whole new industry of organ transplant, and is done in the name of helping women's liberation. So instead of calling it child sacrifice for the demons and the essence and the blood has created the A food. The essence foods start with an A.
Right.
That's popular, that they won't allow people to even talk about today. See, and so the stress, the constant stress, because remember the people are under constant stress, right? So what happens? Even when they're giving birth, the adrenaline is already high. So they're putting it into the garden. See, because the garden is not just that earth, garden is the womb earth. So you have them coming here already, what you would call high adrenaline. This is why the people who are the target are born in what you call traumatic. They're traumatic trauma already, and it's important for them not to know that this is an ongoing operation. This is not an attitude or how someone feels about you. You see the point? So this is why when you go into the records, even for those who will look at some of the fiscal operations during the Clinton administration, I think they released some papers that weren't supposed to be public when they talk about human capital. And you discover that the people are what? Human capital.
Look, personnel departments, became human resource departments, which is
resources.
And
it's all about resources.
They don't call them personnel anymore. They're human resources.
Because that's what it is. Now, what is back to what you're talking about? Korea and Russia.
Right.
Now, what has become the pattern that they all recognize, even with the problem that they're having in Nippon right now? Nippon, you call Japan. That's Nippon. All right, so Nippon, so the Nipponese right now, because they've been subjugated since the war and them dropping that hydrogen bomb on them, right? They are forced, because they're in like an ongoing and unstoppable economic and also biologic decline. So they're forced to sell U.S. bonds, which they're not supposed to do because they're subject, right? In order to stop the yen from totally collapsing. So the U.S. is now even threatening them, not publicly, not to sell the bond, because remember, China, North Korea, Russia, India, South Africa, now Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, all of them are dumping the U.S. bond, which is going to create what you would call accelerated inflation, which is really why they can't sell cars. That's the real reason they can't sell cars.
It's the real reason why I couldn't get the part to my 2-year-old stove.
Exactly.
It's a Samsung.
The sanctions that they put on the Asiatics are backfiring, because the secondary parties that they could get it through, they can't get it through.
Right.
Now, what you're going to see taking place, and they're probably not talking about it in the mainstream news right now, is that in order to save themselves, the Khazarians here, in order to save themselves, they're going to start sanctioning their own allies, which is what's happening in the background. They ain't talking about it yet, so look for it to be happening, right? So let's look at this. They're trying to kind of hold this thing off before what they call the election, because they know the people are still spooked in their mind, as if the election means anything except keeping them busy while they're being sacrificed.
Can we talk about that?
They're being diddled.
Can we talk about the pitiful clip of the fundraiser that they had in wherever they had it for the current praetor, and they're on the stage with the former praetor and a couple other
theater,
couple of actors,
actors,
a couple of male and female actor. And at the end of it, because I didn't see all of what was actually transpired, but at the end, the former praetor has to touch the current praetor by the hand and lead him off.
I didn't see that, but I can understand that.
Okay, so Obama had to touch Biden's hand and lead him off.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is, what came to mind was a clip of former President Obama being interviewed, talking about in an ideal world, he would sit in a basement with a headset on and control somebody out in the front. If somebody what to do that was fronting him, he would continue to be the president. I'm like, well, I'll be damned. That's exactly what's going on.
He told you the truth.
He told us that's exactly what's going on.
They told, even when they were roasting Obama, remember I always remind people when he dropped the mic. They were telling him that the corporation was dead. It was over. So now they got to do this theater and maintain the stuff. Because remember what Bush said: if the people find out what we really did, they'd be coming at them.
Yeah.
See, because you got to remember, all of them guys are tied together.
Absolutely.
And most of them are blood related.
Absolutely.
Including Obama.
Now the interesting,
mom.
The interesting thing, though, I had seen the first Omen and was talking about it. Was it last week or week before last when Rod was on with me, and I don't know whether Rod said it.
Yeah, shout out to Brother Rod.
Yeah, the Chief Pontiac, when he said to me about him. I don't know whether he said it on camera, because we talk off camera too. Yeah. But he talked about how when I talked about the first Omen that I just is out now, and what was going on, he said, "Oh yeah, that's all of the Omen series is about the creation of." He said Obama, and how they found the DNA of not only that, the DNA of Akhenaten
Mhm.
and they used it and created like 50 versions. I'm just gonna say,
But let's look at this.
yeah, right.
But let's look at this.
Okay,
That's back to what? Them separating. They still need the energy of ancient Hikupta,
Right.
the original bloodline.
right,
You know, and this is back to when they keep saying they what? They've taken Egypt from Africa. It's in them. It's mental.
right. So he actually sent me
Mhm.
a this actor right here. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think. This
That was
actor,
used as a
this actor. I don't think y'all can see his picture.
yeah.
The actor on the over here, which
Mhm.
this one right here. You've seen him in a lot of different things.
Mhm.
He was used to train Obama, who was then just the empty shell sort of kind of guy doing his.
They had about four. They actually
Right.
had about 3 or 4.
But he shadowed him to learn how to
The
be
nature.
the
And to talk
nature
like,
and the
walk
talk
like.
like. And if you look at this guy right here, right, they had to after that he groomed him.
Mhm.
In other words, he was using him. He taught him how to have those certain coolness that we all like. He's so cool. And all. No, he was trained to do that.
Now,
You know, and
not
so
just that. Think about what Chief Pontiac said earlier. You got to know why they chose Obama and the connection here that people keep thinking is separate in their mentality. Soon, you want to get these people upset, start talking about the connection of Africa here and watch them get mad and upset. That's why they don't want people to know the real politics and why North America was also known as politically Northwest Africa.
mm-hmm.
See, so what? Ancient, Northwestern Mexican, modern, Northwest Africa, contemporary, North America. So if they don't know the anthropology, they're looking at totally different in their mind. In their mind, that's somewhere else, and they're standing on Egypt. This is why they don't allow the people to go into the cave, the extended cave systems of Kentucky and Tennessee. This is also why they shut down a lot of the mines, coal mines in West Virginia. None of this is unknown.
Is it because that there is an inner earth reality?
And it's not just the inner oath or the underground cities. It's not just that.
Okay.
It's that even within current business operations, many shafts of coal mines in West Virginia area, in Tennessee area, and in Pennsylvania have been shut down because encased within the coal itself, which represents millions of years, they find what they would refer to as ancient Egyptian artifacts.
Okay.
Which means what they're calling Egypt is modern.
So what do you think? Not think.
We know what's up.
Did they take a during the Reconstruction period?
That's what Reconstruction
when
is
they were
about.
reconstructed, were they actually over there making the so-called hieroglyphs and some of those?
No,
things?
No.
Or were they there? Or
what they would do mainly would be anything that would show the relationship of older Mexico and what they call Kemet or Egypt now. They would cut off arms, shoot off noses, damage lips of any ancient artifacts that would show you same people.
So it was here and there at the same time, but here first maybe.
No, here is ancient.
Here is there.
Ancient, exactly.
There we go.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
See, it's like, it's like when they talk about the story of Horus, where they chop up the body and take it all over the world.
14 pieces.
And they take it all around, or they do in masonry and the rituals in Philadelphia, where they strike the grand architect, which is the grand architect, in the head 3 times, bury him in the dark north, right? Means the grand architect is buried right here in North America. The ritual is right there at Juniper. 13th, 13. Broad, Whittemore Party celebration, George Washington, brass statue with Lafayette pressing hands in front of the Grand Lodge, in front of City Hall, with the North Gate open to where they stop the parade and do what they call judgment and the ritual of Hiram Abiff ritual. Grand architect, they strike him in the head, bury him in the dark north, discover he's not really dead, and then George Washington closes that lodge right there in Philadelphia, across that bridge, like this, and he goes, whoa, he's not really dead. So that means they fear that Hiram will awaken, find out the real grand architect, and make a reclaim of land. So that even when you see the Empress,
right, we
went to the empty seat.
Yeah, and
that's
right.
What that's all about. You know, it's different things that when people really know their history, the deal of their effort is that the heirs don't start making public
I'm
claims.
gonna put this question up because that's what. Please tell us what our solution to all this madness. All this madness
is reawakening. The solution is that when this is basically in a word that they use, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's one. The other one is, like, I think it's in both Thessalonians, where they claim the godship. Thessalonians 1 and 2. Other part is Isaiah 64, 65. Which says, to hold out my hand all the day long to a hard-hearted and rebellious people. When they repent from their sinful ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. All right. Then the other statement that's made, Septuaginta, where it says, every man, every woman, every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. In the civil realm, that would be called nationalization. What's happening all around the world with North Korea and Russia today, your earlier question, they're nationalizing their resources. So what does that mean? They're starving the dragon.
Right.
What is the dragon? The dragon is the unum sanctum operations of the priesthood, the Skeksis.
The Skeksis, yeah.
They can't drain the essence. What else are they doing? They're starting to put special protection on their children, not allowing them to be under the subjugation of, quote unquote, the U.S. In other words, they're isolating the Occidentals.
Taking
the Khazarian. This is what's happening politically. They are economically and politically and militarily, step by step, isolating the Occidental Khazarians who have been going to and fro the earth doing what? Draining draining the resources, and then casting asunder the carcasses of nations. They start recognizing that if they don't come together, that they can't beat the Jesuit army. Why? Because it's called the what? Congressional Industrial Military Complex. Comprised of what? The Jesuit operations, and reinforced not necessarily by the man himself, but under his administration, Dwight D. Eisenhower. So isn't this back where they start promoting the Fourth Amendment corporate person that our people believed in for generations? How many millions have been raised every year by our suppressed people under the guise of NAACP? And they've received no benefit. Who owns it? Khazarians. Who's the Khazarians? How they get control of that? NAACP. It used to be what? The Niagara movement. What was the Niagara movement? It was the Aboriginal people here who were rebelling against hybrid European colonial operations, mainly around Chicago area and the Great Lakes every year, because they used to meditate by those waters. And they were rebelling. Then they cut off a lot of them women's heads and throw it over Niagara Falls. They call it Nigger Falls. And then they take over that rebellion and rename it in 1909 NAACP,
Yeah, we didn't
tagging them
create
as artificial persons, i.e., not real. That's
Colored-
what colored people.
colored people.
Isn't that what colored people mean?
Yeah.
Distinguish from that which is real.
Mhm.
Isn't that what's in this book right here? Do they teach civics to these people? Do they criticize anybody who does teach civics? Absolutely do. If you start teaching civics, not only will the hybrids sneak in with their little trolls, they'll send our own people. And our people are so hateful of their own self, you'll never see them talk pedigree. What will they always say? Melanated people, people of color, colored people. And then teach that to their children,
So one of the
which removes them from estate because they think it means something it doesn't mean because they can't read. But because of their emotionalism and arrogance and self-righteousness, they themselves will continue to cast a spell that buys them time because you're dealing with trusts and you're dealing with estates. That's how it operates.
Right. So
You know-
people are, asking, when, for instance, I'm using, like we said, I've been using the dark crystal as a reference point to just a jump off because it just to me, the consciousness. And it was about the people. What are we going to do? The question is, how do we fix it? One of the things happened was that the truth had to be spread to the people. When they saw the truth, it gave them the courage to stand up against the lie.
Now,
And we
exactly.
don't, so
because now look at the loosh.
Right.
What has given the priesthood power is that the people believe in them.
Right.
They don't believe in themselves.
Absolutely.
They have given up their sovereignty, which is divine right. They even look at the word sovereignty as something negative.
Because they say
because of exactly when it actually deals with divine right.
Or as Empress says, soul reign.
That's what it means.
The reign of your soul. Your soul needs to reign. Your soul needs to be eminent, preeminent over everything else.
The priesthood help the Romans do? Help deliver the souls of the people to the priesthood under the guise of Jesus. We remember, this is why they will never say Yeshua. They will never say Yeshua. They won't say the password, which is Jesus. We're not condemning it. Now, let's look at the record. Look at ancient Moabite culture, right? Because the Moabite is basically the natal bloodline of the one that they call Yeshua, right? Mm-hmm. Did his mother name him Jesus?
As far as we know, no.
No, not far as you
know. No J. No J, so she wouldn't have done that.
All right. It's even like the people always have to dance around it.
No.
How much is 2 and 2?
So
why can't the people just say his name is Yeshua?
That's Yeshua ben Joseph.
Well, why do they kind of keep dancing around and justifying Jesus, except that it's a password?
Because they got a lot of songs.
No, because they fear Rome. They fear Rome
but
first.
They've been indoctrinated in religion that says in the name, in that name. So if they use another name,
once the truth is known, how? Because it ain't like they don't know it. See, it ain't like they don't know it.
Not enough of them know it. And not enough of them believe what they've heard.
Ordinary dictionary, you can find it. So they can't see the deal of it is we don't want to justify or accept that we've been corrupted. We like to think that we're so super duper spiritual because we got a cross or a crescent or hex alpha, and we like to play these games with ourselves. But it's also hidden behind fears because they really fear Rome. But they say they fear Allah. They fear Yahweh. They fear Yahovah. They'll always use, because the multiple attributes, right? Even knowing the attributes, and then don't admit that there's multiple gods. You get the point? Mm-hmm. While actually professing it. So again, even while they keep on claiming Christians, right? And they'll even, many of them will use Yeshua, right? And then won't admit that he's Moabite because they don't want to admit he's Moor. Because that's the bloodline, right? But yet they'll use the image.
And that's not even him in the image.
Of course it's not. Because there's Constantine. See, this is
Constantine.
that people won't admit that they have been perpetrating the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed against their own peoples for generations, knowing that and pretending to love Yahshua, who they won't ever confess his name in them houses. They'll just use the password Jesus. Knowing there was no J in Aramaic. Knowing it, not guessing it, knowing it. But yet you'll see them have meetings and discussions on the so-called history and their so-called spirituality. See, this is the point that I'm making, Dr. G. And this is back to answering also the question to the sister. Until we ourselves are willing to deal with the truth that we keep asking for, freedom does not go with the lie. Freedom goes with the truth. So the people want the benefit of heritability, because that's what it is, or inheritance without honoring their mothers, which is the nationality, which is the nativity. They'll do everything they can not to tie to the bloodline because they know that Rome coming after them because they fear Rome superior to their ancestors. Even though they will turn around and profess Ruth was a Moabitess. And who was the Moabitess? Yahshua's great-great-grandmother. So if she's Moabite, he's Moabite. What are the traits of these Moors? Hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass. They'll say copper complexion people. And these people turn around and say, and put an occidental on hybrid, knowing it, on their wall, teach it to their children, then complain about the confusion of their children, which they're doing right now, and then talk about they know them books.
Not only an Occidental or whatever they put, not
Occidental.
They're putting on the son of the Pope, who was a lover of Michelangelo, dressed up. They worshiping. It's that energy. That's so what we wonder, why does that pervade?
Isn't that loose?
Why does that persist?
Loose is not just the fear energy. Loose is worship.
Right. So when you're worshiping something, you might not know what it is, but the intention of the one that puts it out there, they get their intended result because you're venerating.
Isn't that called will?
That you're venerating
something
will that they put forth even in your ignorance.
Isn't that called will and consent?
I don't know what it's called, but I know it's ridiculous.
Let's go back because we're answering sister's question.
I'm answering you too because I don't know.
This is it. What are you doing even when you pick this up?
I don't know why I'm just sitting there.
I'm sharing information
because sharing is
to bring about a higher consciousness.
Yes.
What keeps us buried? And this is back to when you opened up. One of the powers that they have over us is that we give up our power to them, assuming that they are our parentis in government, our mother. Even when we talk about the flag, the vixillum, we say what? Motherland, mother flag, mother nation, mother nature. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's where your inheritance comes from, right? Mm-hmm. Don't your inheritability come through the matriarchy in nature? We're talking about not the patriarchy of the politics. Even in the patriarchal structure, the matriarch is always given veneration. Even the hybrid Occidental, don't they have the Moabites in statuette form in all their chambers?
Yep.
Whether you're dealing with the Vatican or whether you're dealing with Buckingham Palace, don't they acknowledge?
Yeah, because what they do in secret is they'll do in secret that which is correct
open
in
secret.
nature,
How about
and then give
secret?
Us the lie.
How about open secret?
Well, yeah, well,
How many of our people will go to the museum here in Philadelphia or museum in Italy or even in Russia and pretend to be surprised to see the original images of what they would call the matriarch or Mary, and she's Oh, wow, she got dreads. Oh, wow, she look like us. They've been lying to us as if you didn't know that. You know, our people, you know, nature does not recognize person or station. So while we keep justifying our ignorance because of the controlled narrative by the Occidentals, because we've examined it, we see it. And then we'll admit that we know better, but we do it because they be honest or they won't allow us to have Job. So it doesn't mean that these people don't know. They do know, they don't want to admit because they fear Rome more than they fear the spirits of their ancestors. But they're always asking for their ancestors to come save them. So how do we get out of this mess? We got to stop practicing lies. We got to recognize while they cast spells and cast lies, when we follow them and cast them because we're uncomfortable, so we know the truth, when we keep casting lies, you're still putting that energy out. That's called louche. Yeah. So don't play innocent and then want the estate. They don't go together. And one of the ancient maxims of law and jurisprudence is this: ignorance of the law is no excuse. What does it say also in relationship to people that take the sovereign seats or the power of the Ankh, which is called the power of life and death in government? They say, color of law. Anyone holding any position of power that violates the law is subject to the principles of misprision of treason, and the reward is death. Why? Because it's the divine power of life and death in the physical form on earth. What is the civil Livermore II status that they put on the people through the psychic attacks? It's called not physically dead, but dead in the view of the law. These are known factors that these people keep marching and praying about and having meetings about, and all of a sudden discovering that they're Aboriginal or indigenous and arguing that, and then they go right back to the Christian black codes, don't they? And start saying, oh, melanated people, the black people, and they just put themselves right back into the grave. Because there is no heritability vested outside of the nativity. So the nativity is what? Known all around the world, nationality. So what makes us think that we so special, that we can keep violating those things because of our feelings and our fears? Admit that we've been miseducated and then won't acknowledge. You know, like they say, if you're walking on the lawn and you see a pile of stuff that looks like peanut butter in a circle, you know somebody's been walking their dog. Don't start calling it peanut butter just because it makes people comfortable. It's dog doo-doo, and that's what it is, and you choose to step on it. Don't start talking about we need our own perfume factory to wipe our shoes, to spray our shoes because we keep stepping in the dog doo-doo. No, once you know it's dog doo-doo, don't walk through the grass or lay the picnic blanket down there and stop playing dumb. And the deal over there is back to the sister's question. When we stop lying and supporting the lies, nature herself rescues us. That's what it's called. It's called honoring your mothers and your fathers that your days may be longer upon the earth, land, L-A-D. Say nothing about cloud that the priesthood keep telling these people. They know the book says that, and they keep following the priesthood. And then they keep funding the priesthood. So don't act like this is dumb, because a child can understand that. That's why we tell people, you won't keep talking about inheritance and our resources and everything in our land, we the people of the land, then look up the word land in jurisprudence, because it means much more than we all would admit. And it's not complex. Don't make it complex. It's not something that you haven't been told. So people have been sacrificing to tell you this information. You have a right to accept it, and you have a right to reject it. And when you reject the truth, and them hybrids are there sucking up the louche, the sketches, and taking your essence, don't start calling them racist, because race is the species. And among the species, they have what? Nativities. What are those nativities called? They're called nations. What nation come from? Nativity. What does nativity means? To be born. That's what it means. What does native mean? Come from nativity. So you keep on acting like these things don't mean what they mean because it makes you uncomfortable, because whatever tribe you in, you can play that game all day and day long. And long as you keep playing them games, Rome rules, so don't get mad. Because why does he rule? Because he keeps calling you and you keep following. He keeps calling the game, you keep following it. Then you want to bitch and complain because he takes all your shit. Well, he takes your shit because you give it up. And it's called loosh.
Yeah, we got to stop doing that. But I also want to say to some of you, because I had a really enlightening conversation this week with Sister Wakita. Shout out to Sister Wakita. And one of the things that she said is that, get your children, your grandchildren, and your great grands in, put them in your trust as your property.
Exactly.
Put them in your trust. Get a trust and put them in as property. Don't just be putting houses and cars.
All your claim. That's your what? Your offspring
your
or your estate.
Or your estate. They're your real estate.
And what is it called? In the ancient principles here, it's called, what's her name? What's her attribute?
Sister Wakita.
So say what? House of
Wakita.
House of
what? Wakita? Or
that's what it means.
House of Wakita.
What does that mean? That means your estate.
Your estate.
So if you don't trust you, why would you trust the hybrids? And what do our people keep going to? The members of the Circle Church and Chancery to do what? To file a trust. What have they just done? Transferred their estate to what? The Sadducees and Pharisees. That's the Circle Church and Chancery. That the people don't know that is because they're not, paying attention. They changed the name, but that's who it is. That's them same Sadducees and Pharisees, money changers that's talked about in the books. Today, what is their organization? It's called the Circle Church and Chancery, located at Fleet Street, England, in connection to what? Buckingham Palace, Queen of England, connected to the Pope of Rome. Stop playing dumb.
Right.
It's not that this information is not out, Dr. G.
I know.
It's that they keep thinking, oh, that's that Moorish thing. It ain't got nothing to do with us. You have that right. Reject it all you want to. But it doesn't change the rules on the planet. This is back when people want to make things, they got caught up in Ebonics. We don't want to accept the truth, so we're going to make up a new dictionary called Ebonics. And everybody in the community make it mean something else. Just like black means white spot, pale colors. And people keep saying it means melanin. Black, old, Middle English, derived from Old High German, beluga, white spot, pale colors. And they keep telling it's identity of the ancient Asiatic African peoples. Lying. Then they lie to their children and wonder why they don't have no birthright. And when somebody tells them that, oh, that's that Moorish stuff, I ain't got nothing to do with us, fine, you have that right. Nobody's arguing. They can't make, because it's all free will. You call yourself what you want to call yourself. But guess what? Every word that you pass out your mouth is a spell and a prayer. You've been praying for your own enslavement and you've been maintaining it, giving them the loosh that they want. And so they're draining your essence. So you have power to change that, but if you fear them, logically, you're going to maintain the Christian black codes.
The interesting thing, we talk about the essence, I have crazy thoughts running through my head every time. You talk about one thing, and I was just thinking how Essence magazine has been taken over by the Europeans, modern Europeans.
And it's the essence.
And it's the essence, right? It no longer even, to me,
they're controlling what? One of the six are controlling the publishing.
Yeah.
Now, what is the other thing that we talk about past time? We're talking about even them diddling with us and using Diddy as a symbol right now, as a sacrifice, right? So all of the so-called billionaire status, and look at all the people around them, whether you're talking about Kanye and others, right? Who have and overnight they're not billionaires anymore, which means they didn't possess it.
Anyway.
Why? Because it's private commercial paper and it's not money. What happens what happens really in the background that people in the industry, like if you know a few entertainers, right, and you talk to them privately, right? What is one of the things that, like if you're talking to some of the people in the industry and in music, some of them you know, some of them I know. In private conversation, what do they say? They say one of the things that got them in trouble, right? And we're not talking about their history of things that they did or didn't do, is that they started discussing pooling their resources, teaming up to control distribution.
Right.
I just told you bluntly, really. Diddy,
Sam Cooke,
same thing, and it's no different.
Otis Redding.
It's why we
you know, here's some more. They're more.
Prince, when he started, even when Prince made a couple speeches, he even went into the history, the real history, and told you that George Washington was what? Wasn't the first president. So immediately they knew he knew the real history. He said he was the 9th or 14th, whatever he said, but that we're talking the real history. So immediately he sent signals that he know the real history of the Whigamores and what was done here. And also why they gave him that neutered contract. And once he figured it out in contract law and tried to claim his right of estate, all of a sudden he has accidents. Same thing with Mike, right? When Q and them used to call me every Wednesday years ago, right? Mm-hmm. On Wednesdays, right? And when they were setting Mike up with that boy, with that problem, that was a setup.
That's right.
Because he started doing what? Taking control of his music, his portfolio. Also, as you all know, he didn't waste his finance on, big chains and stuff like that. He bought the Beatles portfolio, the music, right? So in real deal in secret, because the message got to me, Paul McCartney hated Michael, although they did their music together.
Only they say that wasn't even the
because
real. Real Paul McCartney allegedly.
Yeah, but we already know that.
Okay, was already dead.
That's multiple people. Even half these singers, a lot of them singers aren't really the voices on a lot of their music. This is what a lot of. Once you're in the music, you already know what it's about. We don't need to go there.
So the word contract means to swindle, which is a diddle.
So the con
part of contract means swindle.
They're using them right now. Because remember, all of that they accrued, keep in mind, they're talking about digital coming. All of that has already been digital. It's been digital since the 20s. It just ain't been to the public. Not only that, with their contract, the so-called gains that are made go to the corporation. They get what you call stipends. They never control it. It's put in trust. It goes to the Khazarian Mafia U.S. corporation operatives. That's why you see all of them are controlled by lawyers and attorneys. All of them. And they're broke at will. That's why the ones that they don't reduce physically, 90% of them go to the grave in debt to the Internal Revenue Service, known as Inquisition Revenue Service, under unum sanctum contract. Most of their lives are miserable because once they get there, they're not happy. They have no life. They're really in slavery. Of course, and from the outside, it looks glorious. It's not glorious at all. And now they're using them to distract you from what's really going on. And that is they're stealing all of your saving accounts, your 401ks, which are 409ks, which we've been telling you for 30 years, and the rest of it. And it's collapsing. Now back to Russia and North Korea.
Yes.
They're not letting them sacrifice them like they did us here, that we gave up, punked out, and went into the melanated black codes willingly and even keep casting that out to our children, acting like we're being spiritual. We're full of crap. And the deal of it is what we want the birthright. Well, don't go together. Freedom and them codes don't operate together. And so the deal of it is North Korea, Russia, they're going into alliance with the Asiatic nations, including Africa, and they're starting to deal with the real international law histories, even though it's never honored here, while we are still playing games. And those here that don't get onto the wagon while there's time will just simply be discarded. And they call that, you can call it, whether it's in the industry, you can call it sacrifice. Whether you're talking about, oh, it's a new virus and they got to do this to you, sacrifice. We're all, what did they say in France? Tavares, he said, when these people are upset, they're going to sell the Chrysler building. How about that, you all? So what does that mean? That means all these people that work for Stellantis here in North America is going to be on the food line shortly, not next year, shortly. So now what are we going to do, y'all? We're going to start using our intelligence with people that are really thinkers and have some courage to challenge the system, to start using people that with knowledge to come together to start dealing with some solutions so that our people don't totally collapse with the system that they're tied to, because they're dumping you right now. That's the truth. So emotional statements and responses are not going to fix a damn thing. Intelligent people that have really been dealing with jurisprudence and who really understand the culture, they want to talk about the matriarchy, you better act like you understand how to govern. Oh, the matriarchy? Oh, how the matriarchy? It worked on jurisprudence because that's where it came from you. You keep acting like it came from them. And while we're playing these stupid games, ego games, pretending to be spiritual, all of the systems, third dimensional systems, are collapsing, not going to collapse, collapsing. And we don't have time for BS. That's your answer.
So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on. You know, y'all. I would like to do, Grand Sheik. I would like to do I don't know whether it'll be 2 hours long, but I would just like to do something on what I got a download on. What I call the first economic hitman that I found that has been documented. And if y'all want me to do, because what it is I'm able to break down something in the Bible that has been given as a spiritual occurrence. And it definitely, there's much evidence to suggest that it was actually a hitman, not a hitman. It was basically, when the mafia come in and they say, we'll give you protection if you do certain things, pay certain fees. You find that in there. And this whole big scenario has been used as a basis for the 10 Commandments and a whole lot of other stuff. And when you break it down to common everyday, what actually was going on, people like, shit, you know what that was? And it just breaks it down. So y'all want to see
what do the hybrids use?
Yeah, if y'all want me to do it, I want to see. Yeah, give me some tools because there's one's already in there for something else. If y'all want me to do that, because I love breaking down the scripture into the regular-ish.
And what do we have to do also while we're doing it?
Well, we have to use
their weapons against themselves. Why? One of the hitman operations, what did a hybrid do whenever he goes in among indigenous people and Aboriginal people? He takes his version of the Bible. Yeah. That's the hit. It's a
so
tool.
Like 5 of y'all want me to do it. Okay, the rest of y'all don't want me to do it.
If you don't know the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, the Emerald Tablets, the Book of the Dead, and the ancient Christ degrees,
Sumerian texts, and all of those,
Zoroaster, and understand how these things evolved and what we have today, then you'll be trapped.
Absolutely.
Now,
we'll learn how to get out of this ish.
You're using that Bible. If you don't know its origin, you're casting a spell.
Yeah.
It's not that you can't use it. But if you don't know the origin and you use it as it's been presented by the hitmen under unum sanctum, guaranteed enslavement.
I'm serious, y'all. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because I think it's important, and in particular for how do we overcome a lot of stuff, because you said
you gotta examine, you gotta critique. In other words, critical thinking. You gotta look at the books that they presented to you that have guided your lives. Then you gotta go to what you call primal source, and then also to the culture from which this is derived. Because remember, as it's presented, most of it's allegorical.
Absolutely.
It's not, and because
she says it in there that it's allegory.
Yes, but I'm just saying, but it's taught for the most part literal.
Right.
Just like they will teach the literal Jesus.
It's literary.
Yeah. But we know that when you go into the culture, you know the allegory. But you also know that the image of what they call Jesus is actually Horus and Isis together as one, not just the son and the mother. It's the mother and the son, or called Ma, son, and
of course the mother's been taken out.
Coded allegorically as masonry, not what people think it is. So the club of masonry is not what masonry is. This is what the hybrid has done. The hybrid has artfully and deceptively stolen the culture of the ancient ones and corrupted it and taken it as his own. So when the people look at it, they keep thinking it's his stuff, then they reject it. When the keys are there. You know, and it's sort of, this is where the priesthood on our side, for fear of death, keep avoiding telling the truth, knowing that Rome coming at them. And they compromise themselves. This is another reason why a lot of them pretend they don't know what the 501c3 is, or they keep rationalizing around it, because we've all been contaminated by it. But once you know the truth, you give it back to Rome. Don't just, it ain't like we've been, so righteous and goody. Just like our people like to keep thinking or going along this kind of line that we're the Aboriginal people, we're here doing goody stuff in nature, singing to the birds and the bees and hugging trees, and then the Occidental came here and brought some people here and start messing us up. That's a lie. When we help make them, that's why they're hybrids. And then they get the whole story about Matawaka, Pocahontas is another way of talking about how they bleed into all the matriarchy to make claim on the land. That's what that's all about. So they just covered up with what Pocahontas' story. It's about land inheritance, land claim through the matriarchy. People think that Pocahontas is, somebody Powhatan, with loincloth and everything, and her breast out and stuff with beads and shit. She was a potentess, daughter of Waha Sundakok. It's not that this stuff is not known by these so-called indigenous people, scholars here. They don't want to tell the truth because they don't want to take guilt that we were battling among each other, among the clan tribes here. And that's one of the reasons why the hybrid European was able to take over. We try to act like, we're the special guys. No, we're full of shit like everybody else. And we got to look at the great stuff we've done, and we got to accept the evil that we've done too, including some of the things that we even did to the hybrid that from a karmic perspective, we received his position of ruling over us. How the time is up.
Yeah.
How about that?
Time is up for them. Time is up for us for tonight.
Time is up for the bullshit. That's what it is.
Y'all. Time is up for tonight, though. But listen, y'all. Next week.
Time flies.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I had fun with you. Well, thank you. I was having fun. So listen, next Friday, y'all, we will be here at the House of Reawakening Minds in person. You can come out Yep. We thank you for the crew that came out last Friday.
And for the few that ask about the corporate papers.
Well, yeah. So
we're
going to have something. We said we're going to make copies.
Yes.
For folks that are coming.
And you'll just compensate for the copy.
Right. So this is going to be next Friday, the 28th. 7 doors open at 6:30 p.m. We say 7 to 9:30, but that is so not when we let out. But we'll be there, for a minute, for a while. And for those of you who want to meet Grand Sheik and myself in person, up close and personal, and especially those of you who have questions. A lot of times, we can't answer your questions on the phone. Y'all call.
We can't.
Yeah, you call and you want Grand Sheik to answer a question, but you calling me. You're not calling Grand Sheik, so Grand Sheik not even here, if you will.
I'll be busy.
He's working somewhere, doctoring up on some house somewhere. But when you come in person, you get the opportunity to talk to us, to see us in person. You get a chance to grab
we're not censored.
Yeah, you got a chance to get a flash drive if you don't know. Some of y'all got your little bag with your flash drive. There's some really great stuff on there. Yeah, so we'll have some flash. Save 5 notes because you got it in person. But come on out next Friday, the 28th, and we will be glad to see you. We're always happy to see,
and we get some work done.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to ask some of those questions that we can't answer, that you post in the comment section, or that you call me and try to get the answer from. You'll be able to talk to him. So come on out and visit the House of Reawakening Minds.
That's why it's called the House of Reawakening Minds.
Yeah,
but that's it. Because the deal, because remember, it's not just limited with us. Until we have or promote platforms with free thinking, because remember, we got to work this stuff out.
Right.
And all of us got little pieces.
Right.
And when you even deal with scholars and you have people that have memories from their family line, that they bring information and it clarifies issues. Because remember, everything in the mainstream news is tainted, not by accident, not for lack of what they call, there is no misinterpretations. All of that ancient knowledge, for the most part, is known. But for power and control, the priesthood and the Occidental Khazarian mafia that runs the governments on the earth under unum sanctum operations and the doctrine of discovery have reconstructed human migration history, anthropology, etymology, etc., all of the demologies to control humanity to the negative and to suck your essence and then discard the carcasses. But at the same time, the carcasses are not wasted. That's where your burger joints come from. And your so-called organ transplant business and your high-end cosmetics come from little people sacrifice.
Yep.
And it's been going on in strength since 1942. Don't pretend y'all don't know this.
Yeah. So anyway, we want to thank you all for tuning in. And I also, we just want to remind you that for those of you who can support us, even if it's as little as, I would say, like $1, a note a month, but maybe two notes, because that way, because they don't, because PayPal and Cash App gonna take some of it, so if we can end up with a note, we would so appreciate it. It keeps, we don't have things going on a regular basis, and we trying to do some stuff. We trying to keep the house open, trying to take care of all of the things. I mean, and look, if you come down and you want to go out in the back and pick some herbs, we got them back there. We got mugwort back there. We got red clover. We got cleavers. Y'all want to come, bring, take some of that stuff back with you so you can continue to use it, for your health and well-being. Do that. But if you can support us we would so appreciate.
Like I always say, the House of We're Being Diddled here to support you, support the house.
The Cash App is going across the. Somebody said, "What's your Cash App?" I don't know if we have. Do we have a separate thing with just the Cash App one for those who want to see it? I got everybody else's Cash App. That's not ours. Whose Cash App is that? That's not ours. That's not ours. It's coming across the screen right now, but let me. I don't even know how to do this. Cash is I'm gonna put it up there, y'all, before we go, just so you can see. You put the $, right? REAWAKEN. Okay.
Can't you put that on tape?
I'm getting ready to do that. I want to add this banner, put it up here. So here's our $, reawaken. That's our Cash App, y'all. So we appreciate you. We don't ask for much, we don't ask often, but we appreciate those of you who do support us on the regular. You don't know what that means, because we right now are experiencing, just a down with our we need a little help with our website situation. So for those of you who are wondering what's up, we trying to fix it. We trying to get things, adjusted. But if anybody
you already know what they've been doing, because they
haven't.
Yes, they was messing with you before.
But that's in this case, no, that's not what's going on. But we do need to do something, and we're working on it. So, but we appreciate y'all. We certainly do.
Anyway, have a grand evening too.
And hope to see those of you who can make it next week. We'll see you next week. How about that? And with that, we gonna leave. How about that, Bridget? Peace. Peace.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is true, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.